This video is about the process of finding and purchasing my truck. I recently got my hands on a 2023 Tacoma Off-Road in Lunar Rock with all the premium and tech packages and options I wanted. I can happily say I got exactly what I was looking for. However, it was not easy. It was extremely difficult and time-consuming, in fact, which is why I want to talk about it. And I want to put this video out ASAP in case you want one of these trucks. Because due to the 4th gen design coming out next year, it's likely that within a few months, these are going to be impossible to come by. I decided I wanted a truck in February of this year, 2023. It started with wanting a 4x4, and slowly but surely I landed on a Tacoma. In all honesty, my first inclination was to get a 4Runner. I thought the enclosed cabin would be more practical for sleeping and such, but slowly I warmed up to the Taco. The big reasons were price and MPGs. After combing through all trims of both trucks, it seemed to me like the 4Runner was consistently $5,000 to $10,000 more expensive for what I wanted, and on top of that, it features 4 to 6 MPGs less than the Tacoma, which is a big deal, especially when coming from driving a non-truck. I became obsessed with the Tacoma, and being the person I am, I was looking for a car I could drive for the next 20 years or 500,000 miles, whichever comes first. With that in mind, I figured why not go all out and get the Pro trim. It's got all the features, and an objectively better tires, wheels, and suspension setup, which makes a ton of sense for a super casual off-roader who doesn't plan on immediately gutting the truck and breaking the bank on upgrades. The only downside being the 2023 model year doesn't offer the Pro in Lunar Rock. But what the heck, I could settle for anything other than that bright orange. So I started combing through Toyota's inventory lookup website for trucks near me in Southern California. Unfortunately, I immediately ran into big problems. It was utterly impossible to find a new 3rd gen TRD Pro for MSRP. This is probably due to 3 things: COVID-induced supply issues affecting all auto prices, Southern California population affecting demand, and of course, Toyota reliability and popularity boosting both the new and used markets for these trucks. I will say, eventually I considered looking out of state and was able to find dealers advertising at MSRP, although who knows if that was real. But in any case, it's possible you could find a Pro at MSRP if you live in a less populated area. What I'm showing on screen is my spreadsheet I use to organize all my local dealers. This really illustrates how much work I put in and how ridiculous the pricing on these Pro trims is. For what is essentially a $50,000 truck, I was being offered probably an average of $60K. You can see the breakdown by packages and markups too. At least half the dealers apply a pure market adjustment. Can you imagine? I was seeing markups as high as $10,000 or even $12,000. And as if that's not bad enough, good luck escaping without $4,000 to $8,000 in dealer added accessories. Those almost make me more angry. Dealers love to brag about how at least they're not selling you air, so it's not as bad, right? Well, it's still junk I don't want and has no value to me, so it doesn't make any difference. And it gets really bad when you combine these two costs. Toyota of Riverside really had the nerve to quote me $74,000 for a $50,000 truck. 50% over MSRP. That pretty much sums up the entire video in one sentence. So eventually, the thought of overpaying by 10 grand for a truck that's not even in the color I want was just too much, and I decided to let go of the Pro. I realized the off-road trim could be decked out with factory packages to make it feel like the Pro, minus the Fox suspension. For me, I was hell-bent on leather seats and a moonroof, so that roped me into the premium package, which was fine with me. And hey, this way I don't have to live with that funky hood scoop. The off-road trims are much more common, and I had a lot more options to choose from in terms of dealer availability, and also significantly lower markups and add-ons. Lunar Rock is still a rare color, but the greater supply made it possible to find them. I started by making phone calls and email inquiries to confirm pricing before driving around, just to avoid wasting time. And once I had a handful of candidates, I started visiting dealers. For me, the whole ordeal of interacting with car dealerships is stressful and draining, so I decided to make a day out of visiting multiple dealers consecutively. That way, I got the pain and suffering out of the way as fast as possible, and each time I got a little bit more efficient at gathering information from the sales guys. I also recommend this tactic as it gives you much more leverage. These dealers will do absolutely anything to keep you from leaving once you walk in the door, and if you have that threat of a better price across town, you'll really push the limits of how good of a deal you can get. And this is especially good when you did your research and you know it's true, and you're not just blowing smoke to negotiate. I definitely had some bad experiences with really unpleasant salespeople, and that can feel very debilitating at times. But even though they're few and far between, I promise the good ones are out there. However, Even with all of Southern California at my fingertips, I could not find the exact truck I wanted in stock anywhere. I actually came very close at one point, but they wanted me to put down a deposit over email before I had even visited the dealership. I didn't think it was necessary, and by the time I stopped by the next day, the truck was already sold. Looking back, if I hadn't missed that opportunity, I would have had my truck about 3 months sooner. So seriously, if you're sure about the vehicle you want, don't hesitate to put down a deposit ASAP. I found some dealers weren't even willing to accept one due to the high demand, so it's actually a blessing of an opportunity. In my case, my search had become a hunt for a dealer that would order me a truck, and I actually found more than one dealer willing to do it. The only problem was even the dealerships can't guarantee when they'll get any given vehicle in stock. One of the most interesting things I learned throughout this process was that the dealership doesn't have any control over when they receive certain vehicle allocations. How does this work? I can only assume there's some grandmaster of market research at Toyota who's developed an algorithm for how many of each car should be sent to what cities depending on demands and demographics. Although who knows, I'm probably giving them too much credit. So I wound up putting down a deposit with a dealer who claimed they get an allocation every 2 weeks. They said that even if the truck doesn't come on this one, there will be a chance every 2 weeks. This was the farthest I had gotten up until this point, so I was really excited and happy to put down $500 to reserve my spot. Well, as it happens, they did not receive my truck in 2 weeks, and I wound up waiting 2 months before I was even notified my order had been received by the factory. The dealer sent me the vehicle spec sheet so I could confirm all packages and accessories were correct. This really was my dream truck, so I told them go ahead. I'm on board. At that point, I was told the truck would enter the build phase, which takes 6 weeks, and after that there would be another waiting period while the truck was delivered. Although another long wait sounded like torture, there was a huge sense of relief knowing dates were set, confirmations were made, and now it was only a matter of time rather than an indefinite, anxious wait. In the meantime, I had actually already been in touch with a second dealer who claimed they could order me the truck. Because I had waited around so long with no word, I wanted to stay vigilant and not leave all my eggs in one basket. This second dealer was also very pleasant to work with, took my exact order for what I wanted, and drew up a specific spec sheet for me. However, they were in the same boat of being essentially powerless over their allocations, so it was a similar waiting game. Even though the first dealer had confirmed my truck would be built, I still stayed in contact with the second. I wasn't going to take any chances, and I didn't want to burn the bridge until it was all over. So after about 6 weeks of waiting, I started getting emails from the first dealer, forwarded from the factory, explaining the truck was slated for delivery. They would send me daily or even several daily updates about the truck's location and ETA, which was really nice. For those who don't know, many of these trucks are built in Mexico, but despite my close proximity in Southern California, it still took 1 or 2 weeks for the delivery to come through. My dealer sent me a photo the day it arrived on the lot. I had planned some vacation days in advance in anticipation of this moment, so even though it was a Monday morning, I left San Diego around 10 a.m. to go get the truck in LA. The dealership was mostly pleasant. I had been interacting with my sales guy for many months, so we had built something of a rapport. He had me test drive the truck, which felt kind of silly, because at this point I had driven like 5 or 6 of these things, but I guess it's probably best to make sure she runs. Anyway, I had prepared all the paperwork in advance, which I highly recommend you do to save time, especially if you're traveling a long distance like I did. I'm talking loan applications, credit reports, insurance, registration, checkbook, everything. Get it all submitted and make sure not to forget anything. I would have been in and out of there in like 2 hours if not for their servers going down right in the middle of our sale, so I wound up having to wait around for a couple hours just for their computers to come back online. The only real gripes I have about the dealership process have to do with the finance people at the end. They try extremely hard to sell you on all the extended warranties and coverages that could increase the cost of the vehicle by $5,000 to $10,000 if you let them have their way. I was very adamant I wanted absolutely none of it, and in this case it just rubbed me the wrong way how long it took them to drop it. I try really hard to be polite, but I don't have much patience for people questioning how or why I want to spend my money. Once I say I don't want it, it's time to shut up, you know? All in all, I got out the door for MSRP plus tax and fees, about $50,000 in my case, which I'm extremely happy about. One cool thing I learned is your sales tax is based on where the vehicle is registered. So despite buying it in LA, my San Diego registration triggered a San Diego tax rate, which is only 7% compared to LA's 10%. This saved me a couple grand. If you add up the time it took for me to hunt for the Pro, give up, hunt for the off-road, wait for an allocation, wait for the build phase and delivery, and finally make the purchase. This entire process took 6 months. It's kind of ridiculous when you think about it, but wow, I couldn't be happier at this point. If I had any advice for someone looking to pick up one of these 2023s in the next 3 months, it's start now. To be fair, SoCal is probably one of the worst areas to search in due to the population. Anybody out of state will probably have an easier time. I know from my own experience there were trucks available in Nevada and Arizona, but I wasn't so desperate that I wanted to drive 6 hours one way and make an entire weekend out of my purchase. Although, I actually know a guy who did something like that, and if you start running out of time, that might be your only option. I'm pretty sure that's all there is to say about this process. It felt like a battle at times, but it was worth it. Like and comment with any questions. I'm more than happy to help, and I'm sure I missed something. Please let me know if I can improve these videos in any way. And if you'd like to support the channel, you should of course subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000. I appreciate every one of you. Thanks for watching, and have a fantastic day.